Right, cool. So we're now going to look at the most important skill in dueling sword. Jules Jacob, of he's got, I think it's a dozen lessons. I, like an idiot, left all of my books inside, and I don't really, and didn't think to run and get them until like right now after I'd already started recording. So I'm going to say 12, and just if people want to correct me later, that's fine. I get a lot of, there's plenty of things that I get wrong or could do better. So if people do have feedback, be afraid. I know I'm a godlike figure, but I'm like one of those pagan gods who has to learn a lesson from their own hubris or something rather than more conventional deity. I don't know where I'm going with that. So, but yeah, the point is if I get something wrong, you can just correct me later. But yeah, so Jules Jacob with his 12 lessons, of those, the majority have an attack to the sword arm in them, and this is kind of a hard thing to teach without having a sword arm in front of you, but I wanted to teach it in this lesson because I want to emphasize that this fencing to the sword arm is quite important. If you ever watch video footage of old duels, they do basically what Jules Jacob and Andre and that all say happens in épée duel. People come on guard, and they basically come on guard lunging distance from the opponent's sword arm. So you actually can't reach your opponent on a single piece of footwork. And the reason to do that is so that your opponent can't reach you. This means that if you're going to get stabbed, you're going to get stabbed anywhere in the arm. But it also means that your opponent's only been given one target. So there's only one place there's only one place you need to defend, which is your sword arm. So what we're going to look at is attacking to the sword arm and then using that to follow up. The reason why you attack to the sword arm is if someone is filled with adrenaline and they're really twitchy, they might react to you by just stabbing wildly. And if you're attacking their sword arm, if you're careful about your angle of attack, you can rule out your own sword arm being stabbed. And if they're not in distance, and if the only thing that's in distance is your sword arm, you've got reaction time. So what we're going to do is come on guard. We're going to do a sword arm attack, which is I extend out and move to an angle. I want to keep this angle as subtle as possible. So I'm doing this as a bit of an exaggeration. You can really see where my tip is moving. But when I do this in about, if I hit my opponent's hilt because the angle was too narrow, I don't mind because that means that I'm not vulnerable to them. And the arm attack, the hand attack is about creeping out until you finally get around the guard. So what we're going to do is extend an arm attack, come back to guard, and we're going to move to a different position, default position. So in this case, we're going to move to a tierce guard, and then we're going to lunge and attack to the body. And I should probably put footwork into that. So attack the arm, bring your back foot up, and move to a different guard, in this case tierce, and then thrust to the body, and back to guard. And with that retreat, with that staggered retreat, because you're looking to get the hell out of dodge. So, attack to the arm, guard, attack to the body, staggered retreat. Attack to the arm, guard, this little skip step. So I'm just doing a short lunge, keeping my front foot in place as I skip up, forming opposition again, or forming engagement again by coming to guard in the process, and then attacking to the body. And back to guard. So, attack the sword arm, guard, attack the body, retreat. Let's do it a few more times. Sword arm, guard, body, retreat. Sword arm, guard, body, retreat. Sword arm, guard, body, retreat. And once more for luck. Sword arm, guard, body, and retreat. Or sometimes running. I have a bad instinct of running in because sometimes the only way to get away safely if you come in with a really deep lunge is to basically keep coming forward. So I do that in bouts, and it does get me stabbed a few times for my liking. All right, so let's look at that same concept, but from a different perspective. So this time, I'm going to come from my guard. I'm going to come in the team, coming over and trying to come sort of over the top of a guard. I tend to do this a bit if I've got like a shorter opponent. It can be kind of a good way to attack. You're coming over the top, especially because most people are used to you coming under. So, press the arm, the guard, we're going to come all the way down to 6, and then thrust to the body, and then retreat. So, attack the arm in 17, come to guard in 6, go to the body, and come all the way back. Attack the arm in 15, guard in 6, go to the body, and all the way back. Attack the arm in 6, in 17, guard in 6, go to the body, and all the way back. And once more for luck. Attack the arm in 15, guard in 6, go to the body, and all the way back. All right. So those kinds of patterns where you attack the arm somehow, or alternatively attack the blade, and then use your opponent's reaction as a way of closing in on them to go to the body, are fairly common in a lot of dueling sword systems, because there was a great concern that your opponent would lash out at you and you both die, which no one really wants. And this leads to kind of an interesting paradox where the epee is actually seen as a safer weapon to duel with than the saber, even though it's easier to cover yourself with a saber, because it's easier to cover yourself with a cut, and also a saber is a lot more substantial. It's it's much heavier, so you can displace a lot better. But because of the caution of the epee, it means that people tend to caution it. People are less likely to double because they're only coming into to the danger zone, so to speak, if they know they're safe. And there are a lot of other ways of doing that. You can beat the opponent's sword. You can try a bind, where actually you basically move your opponent's sword to a line with like very strong control, very strong leverage, and as you're coming in for a thrust. But the main way is to attack the arm, which is why I kind of tried to simulate that tonight. It is a little bit hard to do without an opponent, but yeah, that is the nature of COVID, I'm afraid. Anyway, that's the lesson for tonight. So from here, for those of you who are doing this in person, what we do is I go inside where it's warm, crack open a beer, and we can talk about swords. For those of you who are watching at home, I hope you enjoyed the lessons. Certainly let me know in the comments what you thought. And I'll see everyone next week. Oh, next week we're going to actually, you're going to get to see sort of HEMA under the hood, so to speak. We're actually going to have an interpretation party. So we're going to be looking through a French counterpoint manual, which is a French cut and thrust method. It's really kind of cool. Actually, we've just got one more question before we go. So chat. So Patrick wants to know, how do people salute with epee or small sword? Is there any difference between each weapon or time period? So salutes, I've seen a lot of different methods, and some manuals don't talk about the salute at all. Some methods, it's just a simple, it's done in a room with a high ceiling. All right. So if you imagine I'm standing up when I'm doing this, you salute, just bring your sword up to here, switch down and come on guard. Sometimes people will come to guard, move up, salute their opponent, salute the person to their left, salute the person to their right, and then come on guard. Depending if they're doing an audience display, or just that can just be the system as well. Generally, I mean, not every manual has salutes, and as far as I know, not every system has salutes. So I don't know particularly, but there is a bit more. There's probably the most variation in saluting, which I don't know if that's a bit of a non-answer, unfortunately. But yeah, you do. Usually, what I do with every weapon is just up, holding the sword at probably about nose or mustache height, and then whip straight down into guard, just as a simple salute. And sometimes it's Um, um, and sometimes it's sort of a more complicated motion, especially as you get into late 19th century and like, you know, the pageantry of militarism really sort of amps up into high gear. You know, they can get a bit more elaborate. All right, so before we go, questions? David says, I like mustache height. Yes. So, I mean, it probably would be a bit confusing if you have like a really, really elaborate mustache, because mustache is all like the way up here. It could be height, could be anything. So yeah. Cool. But anyway, thank you again, everyone, for coming. Certainly, you know, definitely hang around, join me for a beer as we talk about swords. And yeah, definitely come next week, because next week we're going to be doing an interpretation party. So it'll be me and a few other people basically reading through a manual and then talking about what the manual is describing that we do, possibly arguing about it. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go, but it's going to be fun, and it's going to be more sort of interactive. And you get to see kind of how, like, you actually we'll get a bit of an idea of how interpretation work goes, which can also be quite good getting into HEMA. Nicholas, will the manual be English? Yes, the manual will be in English. It is a modern translation by the HEMA Misfit. Yeah, no, I can only really speak English, so everything is in modern English. And yeah, so that should be fun. All right, so I'm just going to stop recording now, and yeah, I'll hopefully see you all next week, or like, you know, in the comments below, and yeah, come say hi.